Fantastic. So we heard the message that the meeting is being recorded. This is our cue to begin this webinar. So welcome everybody. First of all, warm welcome to our fantastic panelists today, but also to our attendees that are slowly joining after the lunch break that we have had. We've been having webinars nonstop for the past 3 days. In fact, for the past 2 weeks as part of this European Education Month, and within it, this European Educational Leadership Week, which is the flagship event of the month. It's been organized by ELNE, so the Educational Leadership Network Europe, which is a community of educators, of leaders, and of change makers that are committed to advancing the quality of education through the strengthening of educational leadership, the integration of research, practice, and policy, and ultimately the improvement of learning outcomes. Today, we are in this webinar called Building a Research Community, which we are very excited about. We are going to have a very interactive discussion, conversation with some of the most renowned experts on educational leadership. We will hear their introductions very briefly, but yes, as I mentioned, we are very excited to discuss how we can, from ELNE, support researchers, unify efforts with other research networks that are out there, and create a powerful, sustainable research community that bridges the gap between theory, practice, and policy. Before we begin, I would like to invite not only our attendees, but also our panelists to answer this question. What is your definition of collaborative leadership in education? We have prepared a Slido. We will be putting the link on the chat. And while our chair of the research committee, Mika Risco, will be speaking, we invite you to drop your perspectives there. What is your definition, your personal definition of collaborative leadership in education? We will revise the answers in the end after we have had this discussion, and we will see how in agreement we can be. Now, I'd like to give the floor to the chair of the ELNE Research Committee, Professor Mika Risku from the Institute of Educational Leadership at the University of Jyväskylä in Finland, who is here in representation of the 6 in total research committee members in ELNE. Some of them are part of the attendees, so we will be hearing from them soon as well, but I just wanted to mention and to thank them for their work. Alessandro Arienzo, Maria Senios, Marcus Aman, Michelangelo Somba, and Romuald Norman, and of course, Professor Mika Risku. And Mika will be telling us about the mission of the research committee in ELNE, and also what is the goal of this webinar for building a sustainable research community. So I don't want to take more time from this interesting discussion. So Mika, please, the floor is all yours.
Thank you, Sylvia, and welcome everyone on my behalf as well. And thank you for having the Slido. For our panelists, we need your help. The research committee needs your help, because what we are asking you in the Slido is what the ELNE leading partners are asking the research committee. They want us to have a concrete definition for collaborative leadership. What our research committee does, the application said something, but in practice, I would say that our research committee, together with Sylvia, who is also a member of the research committee, is a concrete process tool for the ELNE process. We try to provide the research perspective into the dialogue with practitioners and policymakers. But then we also use research to support establishing the ELNE community. And as to the ELNE community, you panelists, you are our research committee dream team. In our meetings, we agreed to try to expand the ELNE community so that it would be an umbrella to other networks working with connecting education, policy, practice, and research too. And we would like you to help us with what to do with establishing this community. As to the community issue, we are now in the second year of the ELNE project. During the first year, our umbrella topic was transforming schools and other educational organizations into learning communities. And we had a call to come up with research and practice what that could mean. And we tried to use those presentations as data to come with education policy recommendations. And we did so too. What we learned during the first year for the first umbrella topic was that collaborative leadership is essential for constructing the learning communities. So for the second year, we evolved the umbrella topic into dimensions of collaborative leadership exploring together. And this year too, we had a call for practice, for research, what this could mean. And during the second year, we are trying to use this as data to come up with strong policy recommendations again. We want to have a concrete impact. I give you an example. For Finland, we are using ELNE network to create pressure to push through a proposal we have at the Finnish Ministry of Education. If this proposal is passed, it will give educational leadership a formal discipline position in Finland as a field of research of its own. It will give universities funding to research in leadership in the field of education and to provide education to educational leaders. What needs to be done all over in Europe, we would like to know, and we know that it would be different kinds of things. We want you to give us feedback on how you see collaborative leadership and issues involved with it. And then we want to get your help, how to get you more connected with ELNE, and especially what ELNE could do to help you and to really establish a systemic, holistic community working with connecting policy, practice, and research in Europe. Warmly welcome. And we continue with brief presentations. We've agreed with our panelists that it's about 3 minutes for each. We are 6, so it's about 20 minutes. And we start with Professor Christopher Day.
Yes, thank you, Mika. Professor Day, could you come to the stage? We do not know. I received a message that he does not see himself. Could you speak, Professor Day? We are not hearing.
Now you should hear me.
Yes, we hear you. Perfect. And I will share the screen for you.
Thank you. Can you see me? Okay.
No, we do not see you, but we can hear you so far.
Okay. Well, maybe that's a good thing. Well, first of all, I'm delighted to be here, and thank you for your introductions. And as soon as I hear the words collaborative leadership, collaborative research, my heart sings. And so we just have a very brief time, I know, to introduce ourselves. So I'm just going to ask Sylvia to show slide 2 first. This is slide 2, I think, and it describes really the network which I'm representing. You can see that its focus is narrow, it's principalship only. So we're defining leadership as principalship in this network. That's not to say that we don't recognize other forms of leadership, both formal and informal. The network is 25 countries. It's been going since 2002, and it's producing, or its research really is multi-perspective, multi-level case studies. Our conceptualization, if you like, of leadership in schools is that it takes place in complex environments, which is not so surprising, and that in order to define success, you have to spend a bit of time in the school. Success may be temporary, but we look at success which is able to be defined. And so you can see in that slide actually what I've been talking about, particularly the last one, the last bullet point, not heroic tales of I did it my way, which again reinforces what Mika was saying, I think, and Sylvia was saying about collaboration. And I'll have slide 6, please. So our research stance is that we, across the 25 countries, regardless of context, but taking context into account, of course, in the kind of data we've been collecting, now more than 350 peer-reviewed publications. We use collaboratively agreed protocols. There is no one person who makes it up and says, this is what you're going to do. There are 25 people and their colleagues who agree that these are going to be the interview protocols, these are going to be the survey protocols, etc., etc., etc. So it's slow thinking, slow action, but reliable. We think reliable action. In fact, we've just finished a big meta-analysis, qualitative meta-analysis of the publications. So that's the network, I think, and we're just slide 11, please, and I'll finish with slide 11. Okay, so 10 key findings so far, and we are a learning network. You can see that more similarities than differences among successful principals across countries and cultures, which may surprise some people. The layering of leadership actions and strategies, we don't subscribe now, especially to the bullet point lists of this is what you must do to be successful. It's more complex, as I'm sure you're all aware, than that. We're particularly concerned with the educational values and the definitions, if you like, of educational purposes, which are much broader than those of usually than those of policymakers and policies and standards and so on. And that's what we find. Social justice, of course, is at the heart of every leader's agenda, every successful leader's agenda, certainly, and so on. Progress is uneven, but always follows an upward trajectory, and continuing learning and change are part of the DNA, if you like, of the researchers that belong to this particular network. I think I've had my 3 minutes, and again, good to meet you and look forward to further discussion.
You are perfectly on time, Christopher. Thank you very much. And thank you for this brief introduction. We will get more into it, I'm sure, during the roundtable discussion. But now I would like to ask Professor Alma Harris to briefly introduce herself and her work and how does it contribute to the field of educational leadership. So Professor Harris, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. And I appreciate Chris's input on networking. I happen to think that collaboration is pretty important these days, and therefore I welcome ELNE's invitation for me to say a little bit about my work. I mean, just in terms of the definition of collaborative leadership, it's very hard to give succinct definitions. I think I'd rather disaggregate it down to practices, and I think the key practices would be connection, communication, creativity, community, and criticality. And on that last point of criticality, it takes me to the Centre for International Research in Leadership and Education, or CERL as we call it, at Cardiff Metropolitan University in Wales. It's a university centre, and the reason we set that up was because there was a degree of frustration that I felt and other researchers felt that we kept on doing in-country work on leadership, and we didn't make connections across different countries, and therefore the knowledge base was a bit fragmented and very context-driven. And therefore, I think the centre is very much about collaboration and asking a very simple question: what do we know internationally about leadership and education, and how do we share that evidence base more productively? The centre, therefore, is really I suppose, a springboard, if I can use that term, to making the very connections that we're talking about today. Because ultimately, we need all the connections we can get to make sense of the evidence base around leadership, because leadership looks very different in very different cultures and different contexts. We've got 20 international sort of leaders, I suppose, of research around the world. And our idea is to bring them together, just like you're doing here with ELNE, to bring them together so they can share what they know and think they know, and to challenge, I suppose, a little bit of what we think we know about educational leadership, because sometimes it can be very normative, sometimes it can be very descriptive. And I think we need to raise our game internationally and be more critical about the leadership field, not to criticize, but to be critical. So I think the contribution that the centre can make to ELNE's work is to provide another set of connections, another set of potential collaborations. And through our collective work, I think that because SEARL is essentially evidence-based, that's what we do. We look at the research evidence, we create the research evidence, we connect the research evidence. So this connection with ELNE is both, I feel, welcome and important. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Harris. And we are very happy to hear that indeed we can find these synergies already with SEARL and discuss further collaboration. I would like to invite now Professor Huber, Stefan Huber, to introduce himself and answer the same question as well.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity to be part of this discussion and reflection. My name is Stefan Huber, and I'm coordinating or leading or managing different experts in the field of education, leadership, and management and innovation in 3 countries. I'm holding a chair of excellence at the University of Linz in Austria. I have a research group in Switzerland and in Germany. We tried over the last 25 years actually to build up a knowledge base on leadership in these German-speaking countries. First of all, to make them visible as an important profession to secure and improve the quality of education for all, for children, for youth, but also to increase working conditions in schools for staff, but also to expand beyond the school. So it's not only collaborative leadership or leadership for collaboration, for intentional, motivated, professional, and competent working together. Someone wrote in our, what do you call it, in our writing tool. But also beyond the individual school in the region with other partners. So it's also about a collaborative arrangement for education in a region or in a national system. So with other schools, with other partners. So that's what we try to build up with various projects of research, but also in terms of development and supporting schools and leadership training and development programs, which were actually not really existing when I started my PhD. After I finished my master at the time with Alma and Chris in '97 in Cambridge, because in Germany and also Austria and Switzerland, we had no perspective on that leadership plays a role. And when we hear later Romuald in France or other French-speaking countries. So that was the first contribution, that we have to think about quality of education, quality of schooling, of schools, of education systems, and that coordination is necessary in securing and improving different kinds of qualities, processes, and outcomes. The second was to develop leadership training and development programs for that. To shape with job analysis what is important and what is less important, to move from bureaucratic to more educational leadership, with collaborative leadership, with integrated, with situational leadership, and so on. These were the contributions. And then later on, we started about 15 years ago, the discussion of mapping of our field within the network of education leadership, which we started at the European Educational Research Conference of the Education European Research Association. At the moment, I'm doing two projects which might be necessary to talk about within this context. One is the International Handbook on Governance, Leadership, Administration, Management in Education, where we brought 25 section editors together with around, I would say, 110 authors or authorships, because probably in person it's a bit more. It's around 100 chapters. And the second is within the umbrella of the World Education Research Association. We established a couple of years ago, actually prior COVID, a network which was called World School Leadership Study, which was then radically stopped during COVID and which was now reestablished. And we were quite loosely coupled, but we got more together with around 25 to 30 countries writing country reports on the current situation using a shared framework. And then we have another, let's say, 30 or 40 countries which want to be part of the study, particularly where we now have finalized our survey, where we do national as well as international comparative research on the profession of school leadership. And I really hope that we can network and that we can share. And it's very much about networking networks and working jointly together in research for practice and about practice and with practice. Thank you very much.
Most definitely, Stefan. This is exactly what we want to do as well, right? To connect these different networks and to spread the word to a wider audience and exchange. And as Professor Harris said before as well, to get challenged on our own perspectives as well. So we hope we can build this community. I would like to invite now Professor Monica Elena Minku as well to introduce herself briefly and tell us about her work on collaborative leadership.
Thank you so much, Sylvia, and nice to see you all here. So I know most of the colleagues present here. And I'm very happy to be part of this network and to continue to learn together, I would say, in collaboration with you. So I'm affiliated with the Center of Educational Leadership at the IOE, and I work with Professor Chingu, my colleague, and as well we contribute to the ISPP project with as English team. So I closely work with Chris Day on that project and with Chin. And well, my background is in comparative education. I've worked with the University of Turin for more than 20 years, being particularly interested in teacher education, equity, and a variety of topics coming closer to school leadership. But this is a more recent research topic for me, and I think I have explored it across different types like teachers leadership, middle leadership with Angelo Paletta in Italy, who is one of the fewest experts in Italy working on leadership actually, and school principalship with Chingu, and mostly related to the English case so far. And I think my interest is in leadership in countries that can be described as low accountability, low autonomy school systems, because there is a difference in a way, precisely as Stephen was mentioning, the transition from a bureaucratic model to a more collaborative leadership model. So I think having leaders in a collaborative paradigm is kind of rare in Italy, and I think also in France, or, you know, also there are maybe fewer training opportunities for leaders. So the possibility to network and to collaborate and to overcome systems that sometimes are kind of fragmented and schools operate in isolation. It's really a key, it's a key theme, I think, for most European countries that recognizing this paradigm as low autonomy, low accountability. So collaboration, I think it's even more important than in other countries. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Monica, and would like to continue now with the same question with Professor Stella Costa.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Hello again. It's really a pleasure to be in such an excellent company. Let me to present you. I'm an associated professor at the Institute of Education in the University of Lisbon, Portugal. And I've been developing my research activity in the field of educational administration and policy. Leadership is one of my great interests because I'm very interested in school development, school improvement, and in leadership processes. So I coordinate the master degree in school management and administration, which in Portugal is a prerequisite for being a school principal. And I've been involved in extensive training in Portuguese school leaders at the national level. And I've participated in the working group on schools in the European Union about policies to support teachers and school leaders in developing schools as learning organizations. And there are other initiatives where I'm been involved and whose importance are especially the one that links schools and the quality of schools to their leadership. I've been doing some research regarding leadership and educational schools of priority intervention. This is a program created in the late 90s to support schools. It was implemented by the Ministry of Education, and these schools are located in economically and social disadvantaged areas. And we have been doing research with those schools, a network of schools, and it has been very interesting to see how those leaderships are innovative, and how they collaborate. Collaboration is the main issue in these schools. It is really important to overcome their constraints and the difficulties of their lives. And this is something that has been a part of my work. Then I coordinate a structure in the Institute of Education. The name is Rede Escola. In English, it's School Network. This is a platform for communication and active connection between different stakeholders in Portugal, in the education sector. So this is why I think today this is a very important day to our network, because I think we can have here, we can improve our work as a network, because we have three types of activities. We work through outreach, consulting, and research fostering. We have been doing some comprehensive and interpretative studies to the Ministry of Education, and we work with the schools of the country, and especially with some innovative leaders who are bringing to our country different ways of managing schools. And this is really important to a school network. Then we have different publications in a way to, these publications are oriented towards policymakers, because I think it's important to have this communication with policymakers and with the practitioners, with the teachers, the schools, and the municipalities. So we have been doing this work, and I'm very happy to be here and to think about this idea of collaborative leadership, which is a kind of distributed and polycentric way of managing and working with each other. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Estela. And last but not least, I would like to invite Dr. Emmy Vrilling from the European Association for Practitioner Research on Improving Learning, EEPRIL, to briefly introduce herself.
Hi, Sylvia. Thank you so much. I was actually not aware of the fact that I should do something today, but that's not a problem. I'm also not sure if Nick from the EEPRIL also joined, but I don't see him in the list, so I think he's not here, right? No.
Nick is not here today.
Okay. Well, first of all, I'm Emmy Vrilling. I'm an associate professor at the Open University in the Netherlands. My research is about network learning, and it's all about teacher professionalization. It's about facilitating teachers in really trying to help them to improve the learning in networks from a process side, from different dimensions of the process side, for example, feeling connected or being goal-oriented, or that the research that they're doing together in a network is really practice-based, but also from a more outcome perspective. So how valuable is the learning in the network? Is it only immediate value, or also, for example, applied value, realized value, or reframed value? So that's the focus from my own research from the Open University. And another angle why I'm here is, of course, because from an EEPRIL perspective, I'm one of the board members of the EEPRIL, and EEPRIL is an organization that's really into doing practice-based research in a network, and we really are, we really like to join this network, the ELNE network. Actually, Sylvia also joined our conference, our last conference in Hasselt. So also from both perspectives, I'm really interested to join this network and see how we can collaborate together.
Yes, thank you, Emmy. And that's indeed exactly what we are trying to do today, to figure out a path to build this, connect these, let's say, common themes that we have, and the synergies, and build a path and a roadmap to work together. We will share the screen, if my colleague can share the Slido answers with this definition of collaborative leadership that we asked you at the beginning of the webinar, because as Mika was mentioning, this is one of the tasks of the research committee this year for ELNE. We are trying to come up with a definition of collaborative leadership, and we will really like you, before going into this discussion that we will have together, to challenge it. So I would like to invite Mika to comment on these answers that we see on the screen, but also to all of the panelists that, if you haven't commented on the Slido, please let us know what your thoughts are on collaborative leadership in education. Mika, would you like to read the answers that we received?
You want me to read them, or can people see them?
People can see them in the screen.
Yeah. I would want to get some help from other research committee members too. Exactly as we've been saying with Sylvia, I think the leading partners and the steering committee of ELNE would like the research committee to come up with a concrete definition on collaborative leadership, and that we could then base our work on that and the policy recommendations too. And here I'm looking at the faces of our research committee members. If I've interpreted us accurately, that we don't really believe in this, that we come with a concrete definition. We had a webinar on another issue in our ELNE Education Leadership Week earlier, and I think it was the ESHA, so European School Head Association webinar, and the topic or the question was, is it something clear or is it something Hydra? And most of people said it's Hydra, but I think we also agreed, everyone, that it's clear in that sense that collaborative leadership is about togetherness, but after that it comes complicated. So you panelists, what do you say? How do you advise our research committee? Should we really work hard for a concrete definition, or should we leave it like together and then have it more complex and dynamic? Go ahead, Chris. Go, and please, you chair, Sylvia.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Christopher, we hear you.
Okay. Well, somebody has to start, so okay. I think it's important to chart. I mean, the people in this room, most of us, have not got together to collaborate. All right. We've built our own agendas, our own network through collaborating with others, but not with each other mainly. Yeah. There must be a reason for that. So in other words, but there's also a reason for us all to be here, which is great. So there's a challenge. Obviously, we're willing to give away as well as to take. And that's a key feature in our experience in the network of collaboration. You give, you don't just take. And a second, so in other words, for me, I think it would be valuable to map the characteristics and contexts in which successful collaboration has occurred and can occur. And I would use the word success. Of course, collaboration itself means nothing if it's not successful.
Thank you, Christopher, and thank you for breaking the ice there with this first question. I would actually like to redirect the question to Professor Harris, that was mentioning at the beginning, how they had seen that this knowledge-based approach was so fragmented across countries with different cultures as well. And obviously this has a very strong impact on the way we perceive and define concepts. So with the definitions that we saw before, and also in the spirit of challenging each other, I wanted to ask, I heard from all the panelists here already that evidence-based, of course, is a very important tool. So how would you say that collaborative leadership in education should be supported and promoted?
Is that your question to me?
Yes.
Oh, good. I'm glad it's so simple and straightforward. I'm sort of with Chris, really. I mean, we've got so many different iterations of types of leadership, and the definition is less important than the practice. So I would want to say to you, well, what practices would you want to see as part of collaborative leadership? And I quite like the second definition. It's off the screen now. Because my next point is, so what? And I think the important thing about leadership is the practices and the impact, not the definitions. And I think you want to be able to at least scope out what the practices might be of this newfound collaboration. And also, what the intended purpose or intent or impact might be. So giving collaboration a little bit of a hard edge, because it's one of those terms that's just bandied around. Everybody wants to be collaborative. Why wouldn't you? It's like, motherhood and apple pie. You wouldn't not subscribe to it. But at the same time, you've got to be very clear of the difference between, cooperative leadership, if I can put it like that, which is about making connections and links, and collaborative leadership, which is actually, I think, more deep-rooted and purposeful and should have an intent behind it. So I think clarity about intentionality and potential impact, where is the added value from collaborating? Chris's point, well, why aren't we collaborating? Well, we're collaborating probably in ways that bring some added value to our own institutions, organizations, or ourselves. So that second definition, I think, comes very close to focusing on those particular aspects that I've just talked about.
Yes, thank you, Alma. And actually, Professor Hoover dropped it in the chat for you: working intentional with aims, professional, competent, motivated, together to create coherent coordination of action in securing and increasing qualities of education, school organization, and the school system. And I would like to give the floor to Professor Hoover, who is always very active in the chat. So please share your thoughts, Stefan. Please unmute yourself. We don't hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes.
I think if we talk about something, it's something, then it's important that we define what we are talking about. And of course, you can keep it broader, you can narrow it down, but that's also a way of defining something to make it understandable. If it's a word or construct and so on. And if we do research, we want to maybe quantitatively speaking, operationalize it. So there are various aspects in research, in communication, that it is important that we talk about what we mean with certain words, particular, not only international, but also national within communities, whether it's academics or practitioners and so on. So I think to define it a bit is actually a very important way to avoid misunderstandings. But when we talk about collaboration, I wrote intentional, and Alma pointed it out, and I completely agree with that. If you do just things together, working together, that's not necessarily collaboration. That's, you're doing things. The question is, do you do things together, or you divide work? So there, the intention, the methods come in, and so on. So I would always actually, like you talk about teaching, there are didactical aspects. You have aims, you have methods, you have media, and so on and so on. This we can obviously use for collaboration. And of course, you also have intentional aspects, but you also have unintentional aspects, positive and negative. You have side effects. You have costs, and so on and so on. You have qualities you create, effectiveness or efficiency, and so on. And I think this is also important when we talk about that, because not only in a professional way, you would consider that. What is the effort to collaborate, to what I gain from it, or what creates and value? That the whole sense making, the purpose is very important, that people are motivated at all. And most often collaboration starts very well and then lose the tightness because people don't see the purpose, or it's not communicated, or it is less or badly coordinated. Or there are other feasibility questions and so on. So I think this is something we have to regard. Researching collaboration, but also collaborating ourselves with practice or with other colleagues in academia, or with policy, or with administration, or with other professions which are linked to education.
Yeah, thank you so much. And a very important keyword there, the purpose, the common shared goal. And as you mentioned, Stefan, not only in our work, but we need to collaborate ourselves. So I would like to throw the question to the room, actually, since all of you are clearly working on this with your separate networks. What is your challenge that you encounter when trying to provide this evidence base for the work that you do on collaborative leadership? Is the purpose that is missing sometimes? Is it a clash of heads of opinions, and forgive me if I'm missing something in the chat. I'll be checking it out in a second, but yes, can anybody comment on these challenges and how to overcome them? I'm sorry, because I don't see the screen fully, so I don't know if there are any hands raised. Yes, Monica, please.
Yeah, I was also reading Maria Zinio's comment in the chat. So so yeah, we need a workable definition, but from where do we start? Is it from theory, or is it in a way bottom up from actually the practices that we know that, you know, collaboration might assume in our diverse European settings? So maybe we can have different ways of approaching this definition. And I very much like the definition of successful collaboration, which is something like very, very high and very substantial in a way. But we might have some forms that are not so do not tend to the maximum of the collaboration, but are rather incipient, rather weaker forms of collaboration, and still might be valuable in certain contexts, just as a way of getting used to what might be collaboration. So for instance, based on my experience in Italy, collaboration occurs when leaders have the chance to train together. When they come together to do some training, they get to know each other in small projects, and maybe that's an initial step in some forms of possible collaborations later. So I'm just aware of forms of training organized maybe at the regional level here and there, facilitated by maybe some regional institutes, some experts, and that's the only chance to collaborate. Or you know, otherwise, collaboration is not, in a way, institutionally supported or facilitated, or it is not in the DNA of the Italian system of education, at least. So it occurs really on a personal basis, in a way, or it's not institutionally promoted, unless it is organized as coming together for training. So that's I don't know if that's collaboration or just, you know, creating a network, which is really the first step. Thank you.
Thank you, Monica. And indeed, we also recognize this lack of institutionalization. And so once again, this bridge between, or sorry, this gap that we need to bridge between policy and practice, but also between research and practice. Professor Harris was mentioning before that yeah, rather than a definition, we need to focus on what is actually the practice. But so my question is, how can we bring this research, this evidence, and how to engage the practitioners to really have this collaboration culture in educational institutions? And I think, of course, what Monica was saying of an institutional, whether it's support or push, would be a great value there. But what other ways can we support through research this collaborative leadership in educational institutions, this culture? Anyone brave enough to take the floor? I think someone's writing in the chat. I hear keyboards.
That's mine.
It's Chris. I already wrote him, but he didn't see my message. That
Yeah, I see messages in German, so I cannot comment on those. But yes, Christopher, please go for it.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, we're not rational, are we, entirely? We're not cognitive entirely, are we? We have feelings about what we're doing and who we're doing it with. And I'm speaking to Emma, I think, here, particularly in your practice-based inquiry network in the Netherlands. All my experience is have to build trust, regardless of the goals, regardless of what you want to produce and how you want to work, does require a building of trust between people. I don't think it's that difficult, providing, I mean, it is difficult, but I don't think it's impossible, providing you believe that you can trust and others believe that you can be trusted.
Thank you so much, Christopher. So we've mentioned here the institutional support, trust, the common purpose, shared vision, and I think that they are very important keywords to keep in mind. But now, thinking more straightforwardly in our goal of this webinar. As we mentioned before, ELNE is trying to build this community of researchers and to create these networks that we were mentioning before to spread the word to a wider audience, right? To inspire others. This is why we call the practices and the research that we collect inspiring showcases to see how they can be transferred, how they can be scaled up. And we really want to ask you who are doing this amazing work in your separate networks, and all of you actually knew each other, or pretty much all of you knew each other and have collaborated in some way before. How can we support research? What can we do to support researchers and research networks to make their work more visible and more impactful and really achieve this goal then of inspiring others and bridging the gap between practice and research?
For me, I
Yes.
can offer a thought there. Sorry, I didn't put my hand there.
Go for it, please.
I think all of us around on this call have done some, cross-cultural work, some comparative work, and the question is, why do we do that? And we do that because it enables us to think more critically about what we think we know about leadership, but also it brings different perspectives. So here's sort of three things to think about. Now, if we were to connect through ELNET, what would be the purpose of doing that as researchers? Okay, and I think there are three main purposes. The first is to avoid the research echo chamber. You said we all know each other on the call. We know the people in the field, and there's always a danger, isn't there, that you therefore rebound the same views in that field. So I think there's a sense of expanding that, not the echo chamber, but expanding connections so that we avoid that sort of echo chamber of what we think we know. I think the second point is about extending the connections within the leadership field. So, again, avoiding the narrowness of particular countries, particular researchers, particular types of research, because we know if you look at Asian countries, for example, there's a paucity of research there is growing, but comparatively to the US and to Europe and other countries, it's quite small. So my third point, I think, is the most important point. We have missing evidence in the field, and it's missing because it's actually written in a different language in a different country. So how do we access that research that is missing? That written within the English language tends to dominate, and that within certain countries tends to dominate. The theoretical perspectives on leadership tend to be Western. So I think the benefit of having a network like this is to get underneath some of the research in other countries, to understand different perspectives and theoretical positions, and to broaden our understanding of leadership rather than narrow it.
Thank you, Professor Harris. Very, very inspiring and powerful message. And in the meantime, some of the colleagues have been writing in the chat as well. What I understand is their view of what is the purpose of this collaboration, and there's visibility of work, exchange of work, shape our work, increase and secure quality of work, reduce workload, have fun. I like that one. Learn from each other. And yes. Okay, would anybody like to react and comment on what is this purpose for this collaboration here?
I just wanted to add, when I wrote "have fun," I only reacted to Chris's point that it's also about emotion. He was just
I
saying
will
that, and then I
include it.
thought, okay, let's also about that. Yeah,
I
it's
will
also,
include it in this purpose.
yeah, but we know from research a very crucial predictor for collaboration, besides that you see gains, is creating trust. And this is also some kind of way concept. You can make it very concrete. We have scales measuring trust, but it is something like where you say, "Hey, I trust you. I'm okay with you," and it's more like a bit a holistic way kind of thing. That it's not necessary. Of course, little concrete things add up to increasing trust or decreasing trust, but it's like a more generalized approach to a topic and a group of people and you join in. So it's also I don't know the English word right now, that you invest particular time or other resources in something which is maybe a bit risky, but through trust you say, hey, okay, it's okay. So that's also important. It's not only rational. It's not only that you say, we promise you more visibility, um, increased intellectual exchange. It is all about these kind of things. You get better quality. You reduce your work time through collaboration. It's also about, hey, it's part of a community. I think Alma also referred to that. That you are, it's also like creating a thing of belonging. So there is something what I wanted to say when Chris mentioned it, where it is not only about rational aspects, but about something that it's sense making. Yeah, maybe it's about sense making also on an emotional aspect.
Yeah, fantastic.
And of course, in a professional context, you would also work with some people you like more or you like a bit less, but it's still on a professional context where you say, hey, this is a community which creates it contributes to maybe a more holistic professional well-being.
Yeah, thank you so much, Stefan. Stella, please.
I completely agree with everything that has been said. And I would say that it's important to create the context. I mean, it's important to, this idea of successful collaboration is something that really, I think it's really crucial. To have something to give to those that we want to have with us, but the idea of creating a context, to have a purpose, to make I think events and documents are really important when we are talking about coordinating people and have people together around something. And I think events can be the place where people comes and where people has the opportunity to be together. And this idea of being together, of communicating, of exchanging different perspectives, because collaboration, as you have already said, why is collaboration important? Why is it so difficult to achieve? And these are questions that I think could help to make to make people think about the possibilities that this cross-cultural network could help to be a success. I think the definition is not important, but the definition is also important. But that's something that we are going to build as we are working on it, because there are different ways of collaborating. There are different contexts of collaboration, and there are different perceptions of what collaboration is and why is it important. So I think it's about reflection, it's about creating context, and it's about intentionality.
Yeah, thank you very much, Estela. And I saw that Emmy's hand was up before. It's not anymore. I'm not sure.
Oh, yeah, well, I think it just went down on itself because it took so long, I think. But I wanted to reflect a bit more about the trust theme, because I really think that trust and feeling equal is very important when we want to create a network. And that is actually something, well, especially when you are heterogeneous, so we're not all well, the same. So if we want to really reach that we trust each other, then that is something, it doesn't just happen. If you just put people together, they just not automatically trust each other. So it needs facilitation, actually. For example, informal activities to really feel connected, getting to know each other. And I really think that's very important for us to become a network. So yeah, that's what I wanted to add.
Yes, thank you, Emmy. And that links perfectly with my next question, which is what can we do? Yes, Stefan.
I just want, no, I just want to add, because we are published that on several phrases, that actually leadership needs collaboration, but collaboration also needs leadership. And besides all the factors we mentioned, you can work with people who have no clue. It is not really helping you a lot. But you can work with people who have a lot of competences, but they are not motivated to share. Then it will not do a lot. You have people who are maybe motivated and competent, but they are not legitimized or don't have resources for collaboration. So there are different factors, of course, which we also in our collaborative research. I have a few PhD students on collaboration, on leadership, on within schools, between schools, and also networked systems. We had Bildungslandschaft in Schweiz, so in Switzerland, 23 regions. But what always comes out is the role of leadership. Not only that it is collaborate, but it is creating this kind of coordination. As you said, yeah, it needs to be shared, but this collaboration needs to be coordinated. It's always about a person or a group of persons or clear roles who invite, who bring people together, who make the rhythm, and to keep something particular. If it's with volunteers, with in outside school networks, where it's not a professional job description, then it's particularly necessary that there's someone who invites and keeps things going, brings people together. Like a coordinating person doesn't need to be called leader. In Switzerland, it might be called coordinator, maybe without any say at all, no decision-making power, but the role of keeping the rhythm. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Stefan. And I see a comment from Christopher on the chat that says, I agree with Emmy and Estela that we need to establish a context for collaboration linked to one or more agreed purposes. And so I want to ask you, with this objective in mind, right, of creating this collaboration at this level between us at the research network or stakeholder networks level, what should be our priorities? What is it that we want to achieve together? So we were saying before about the shared purpose, and I really liked, and I think in the chat there was a strong agreement with what Alma said, in broadening our perspective and extending the connections to avoid this bubble and this echo chamber, I think you called it, Alma. So I ask you all, what would you set as the priorities for this collaboration, for this community? And I invite as well, we have the research committee from ELNE here. So we have Mika, we have Romuald, Michelangel, Maria, Marcus. So I invite you as well to participate in this discussion. Any brave icebreakers?
Okay, I'll be brave then, I'll be the icebreaker. I seem to be that in that role. I think it's a great question to ask. It's starting with the end in mind. What do we want to achieve, and how would we know we've achieved it? And I think for me, there are a couple of things. I mean, The first is about research capacity, because that varies depending on country and context. And I think a network like this could help with not supplementing any research capacity, but certainly could provide additional research capacity from its setting. I think it's also about research engagement, getting people engaged in ways that perhaps they wouldn't be engaged if there wasn't such a network and there wasn't such a forum and there wasn't such enthusiasm. So it's about engagement as well. But two just final points, which are important to me. I think it's about the added value to the knowledge base. You know, like I said before, we've got missing knowledge, and that's not through the fault of researchers or not through the fault of the research itself. It's just to do with the way that research is presented and understood and disseminated. But on balance, I think the one thing that this network could bring, and I know other networks do this, absolutely, but I think we could do it more within our field, is to really represent a diversity of perspectives and voices on the subject of educational leadership, or leadership in education, whichever way you want to define it. But the important thing is that sort of broad-based sense of participation from more diverse positions than we currently have.
Thank you so much, Alma. And I'll give the word to Mika, but just in case he won't mention this, I will. So I really want to stress really because I like what you said now about representing that diversity, and that's what ELNE takes pride on, right? That we have these different stakeholders, and we always say we break the silos. We talk with the different stakeholders that we normally don't in our day-to-day job outside of ELNE, right? We have the parents, the students, we have the universities, but also the academics on their separate research work. We have the education managers, the school heads, the teachers. So we really, with the inspiring showcases that we call, we really try to, this year we use school resilience as the topic that we were looking at, but we used it both for the practice and for the research to see, is there a gap? What is happening? What can the practitioners tell us that they are doing in this regard, but what can research show us as well? So this is something that we at ELNE try to do, and now we are really looking at the way of connecting the two. So Mika, you can take it up from there.
Thank you. I'm going to be selfish here. Listening to our discussion and thinking the Finnish situation, our institute started its work 1996. It's where university research and education in educational leadership starts. And we are still the only one, the full service house on educational leadership in Finland. We're trying to change legislation. And one of the obstacles was that the other universities just were not able to research or educate educational leaders, and politicians were not ready to revise legislation for one university. So we started creating a critical mass and noticing how thin the human resources are. We are far there now, but it's taken like 30 years. And I, especially talking with Euromoa, that it's the diversity in Europe, that we are in different kinds of situations, that how can we help there, for example. Then ELNE is a successor of EPNOSL and EEPN. Some of us have been there since 2011. Especially in the EEPN phase, we recognized voice in research. And I'm so angry, you know, in Finland, for example, that we recognized voice in research, and Finnish researchers have not used EEPN findings in their funding applications. And then ELNE, what Sylvia was saying, we have the 360-degree community in ELNE. And we are using that now to change legislation in Finland. But what can ELNE do, for example, in these issues? And also I can tell that working life organizations have wonderful research through their national organizations, and something that we understood in the EEP phase, that it's not used. And typically researchers do not recognize that kind of research. So there's a lot that we can do. I think, Sylvia, we can promise that this will not be the last time that we get together, and building the trust and hoping that everybody enjoys what we are doing is very important. But it's about the next steps. And as I said, I was selfish and had that, like, these approaches, and I tried to be a bit agitated too. I don't know if I succeeded, but could somebody go on?
Yes, thank you, Mika. And exactly, we hope that this is not the last time that we meet. We need to continue building this trust. And I think I saw in the chat, Emmy suggested to write a book together from different perspectives. And so we really need to come up with what to do to really have an impact. And I think that connects really well with the question that Romuald put in the chat. That is how to transfer this knowledge and research findings into appropriate means for practitioners, because we also see the challenge of reaching the grassroots, right? We have these webinars at European level, or we have them sometimes in national context, but at small scale. So we are trying to see as well, what can we do to have this inspiring and impactful outreach to our audience. I think Christopher raised his hand before Stefan, but so we'll go first with Christopher, if that's okay. You're muted, Christopher.
Okay, you can hear me?
Yes.
Good, thank you. Yeah, I mean, the danger is we go scattergun, or what we call scattergun. In other words, there's so many places and impact places, if you like, that we want to influence. So there's the knowledge gap, which Alma has rightly recognized. You know, there's different knowledge coming from different theoretical perspectives right now, right? It exists in this group too. There's policy. How much are we how much, Mika, for example, are we wanting to influence policy? Emmy, how much are we wanting to influence teachers, practitioners, teachers as researchers, and so on? We could go on. And I think before we go anywhere, before we start building trust, or in order to start building trust, perhaps, we have to define what our priorities are. Of course, there'll be overlap. Of course, there will. But within that overlap, we have to decide, okay, is ELNE interested, at least in the next phase, of influencing pan-European policy? Is it? And if it is, then this is what we think we might do it. That kind of thing. So we can if you like, combine both the knowledge which we have about trust and the leadership of trust and building and so on and so forth, with the clinical, right, this is policy across these 3 countries or across these 10 countries that we want to find a way of influencing, or it's practice through teacher development or leadership development programs, or it's something else. All of these things are going on right now, but it's scattergun. And I think there's a reasonable case for saying it's not working very well. So we have to change the way we think about analyzing our needs and our purposes. Sorry, that wasn't very coherent, but that's just what I was feeling right now.
Thank you, Christopher. It definitely sparked some more discussion points. Stefan, please, I see your hand raised.
Yeah, thank you. You know, I was when this came up with the book idea. I mean, you know, we are all involved in activities already. So one way could also just to be inviting. Like it's about networking networks. So like it really starts about visibility. So if we kind of communicate what's going on, and if there's already like the international handbook going on, and some of you are involved, of course, I know that, but others not, but would like to be involved, then I send you the link in the chat. So consult that. If this is interest, just send a short message, and then you can be part of that. Or the same holds true with Chris studies or with others. So like if we hear about things and then get involved, but you can also kind of from a more individual perspective kind of start to coordinate that and say, okay, here are 3 networks, and we make a rhythm to it, that they are here present and that people are. So I think from just sharing information and saying, hey, you know, you heard something, and then intervals taking initiative, I think that's absolutely fair enough in terms of visibility if something like that happens. But you could also say, let's move a bit further, one step, only one step. Here are activities already laid out. We invite our members of the network for these activities, or we create a schedule or an approach to make it a part of your own strategy. Besides, of course, the opportunity to create a new book on what, and then you have an idea, or you have a brainstorming about an idea for a book. Yeah, I would send up a book because what we experience internationally on leadership in a completely different arena, which is political, which is about democracy against bureaucracy or against law or whatever, and we could also see what that means for our schools. Yeah. And maybe we don't have Europe anyway anymore, because it will be the US arena and the Russian arena and the Chinese arena. Maybe we invest in military and so on. I'm sorry that I bring in political topics, but education is an arena where we have to talk about what's going on in the world, because we build a Bildung for youngsters to be part of our society, of our community, and so on. And we can say, okay, leadership is about democracy, democratic leadership. And so we have another idea. Or we talk about the different kinds of leaderships we experience from a political set, and transfer that. Do we experience like these kind of leaders also in a school context? Chris, when he pointed up like what are the common things, he said that it's not so much the culture. And I was with this, it was the very first point of Chris' PowerPoint, and I think it was the last slide, his key findings and so on. And I really puzzled, because I experienced that a Chinese leadership is still different to a leadership. And even within the German countries I'm working, Austria is very different to Germany, is very different to Switzerland. It's really different. And I can explain how that is, and we can have a discussion about that. What I'm just stimulating is that could be something where it's not everyone agrees, but then we can think, what do you mean? And then we can, engage in that, and, something like that. Like there were like 3 aspects I mentioned to be coherent. One is their initiatives and activities, share this information or make it part of your strategy. The second is, let's think about things no one has really discussed or not recently, but we experience drastically changes from leadership. Or we talk about this aspect of culture. Particular, is there something within a European network like European culture, or do we have more regional and so on? So that these were the 3 points I wanted to mention, and I thank you very much for that you allowed me to speak. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Stefan, for the synthesis. I had taken note of them as well, and I was about to do exactly that. But I like those concrete points, and we have only 10 minutes left of this webinar. We will have the closing ceremony of the week right after, so we really cannot delay it more. So I would like to finish with one last question, and really building from that, those 3 points that Stefan just mentioned there. What is it that we can do together now? What are the next steps? So we discussed about a potential purpose. We found some synergies. We see what others are doing. We, as Stefan mentioned, have shared in the chat different activities that we can coordinate in or attend and disseminate, invite our networks. But us as this group here, this fantastic panel that we have here, how can we move forward? What would you be willing to do now to build this research community? How can we support you? How can we collaborate? What is feasible to do? So I throw the question in the air, and maybe the research committee, who is actually the one that is meeting weekly at ELNE or bi-weekly, can contribute as well. What is feasible? What can we do together? You know our activities. We have our journals, we have our webinars, we have our conference in person, our policy recommendations. So what would be the best area to work together? Mika.
I have a concrete suggestion. If I think about my own university, people in other fields than educational leadership often comes and says or asks, you work with the educational leaders, could we come and present to them what we think that it's important so that they as educational leaders could try to have an impact. We have the top people of all European Union level or Europe level trade unions with us. Could that be something that we could get together and come up with what research says and have something that somebody already said there earlier, that we could have the critical mass that, hey, this is what we would like to do, for example, with the European Commission or trade union, something concrete, a seminar like that. Just an opening for our discussion.
I see Romuald nodding there as well. If you'd like to contribute, Romuald.
I'm just agreeing with Mika. I think we need to educate European policymakers, not only trade unionists. And I think a high-rank seminar with this kind of policymakers, and perhaps if we could manage that, it could be an opportunity, to have a kind of way to influence, their thinking at high level, I think.
Yes, thank you, Romuald. And sorry, I was just saying goodbye to Stefan, who had to leave us for another meeting. And I see that Professor Harris has put in the chat, how about a special edition of school leadership and management based on ELNE's collaborative research work? Any comments from the research committee of ELNE particularly?
I'm just thinking of, like Chris and Stefan, about some concrete steps and how you build collaboration, and you build collaboration through trust unequivocally, but you also build it through collaboration. I know that sounds sort of contradictory or counterintuitive, but you don't just self-combust into collaboration. It needs activities to bring people together. So I'm the editor of School Leadership and Management, co-editor rather, and it's just an offer that's a very concrete thing to get your head round in terms of bringing research together and researchers together. So that's just an offer that I put out there, and a way of bringing collaborative practices a little bit more well-defined, if I can put it like that.
Amazing, thank you. And actually, Michelangelo here from the University of Autonomous University of Barcelona and the research committee, he mentioned as well in our chat that we have our journals. Why not contribute through your contributions? Have this section in the journals as well. So I think there's definitely an opportunity there as well. And I think Mika raised his hand. I'm not sure. Mika, we have 4 minutes left, so I just want to mention briefly that, as Mika said before, actually, ELNE chooses topics yearly. So these are the overarching themes for the work that we do. And this year we are working on having this collaborative definition of collaborative leadership. So we already got a bit of your input today, and we have been, let's say, producing it from the inspiring showcases that we have received from practitioners, from researchers, from our members of the community, which again, we have this wide diversity there, and we will be having an in-person conference in May, 14th of May, where actually we will continue to discuss and how do you say in English, to refine this definition. So I think that in-person conference will also be a great opportunity to continue this discussion with all of you. So on my side, what I can tell you is one next step is I will follow up with all of you with an invitation to join us in Brussels in May. And for sure, I will be more than happy to be having more of these sessions and these interesting discussions. Mika, I think you wanted to say something, and that will be the last of it because we only have 3 minutes left. So the floor is yours.
You read my mind, Sylvia, already earlier. We could, in fact, prepare the 3rd year so that there would be a publication on the 3rd year call, whatever the topic will be there, and the May conference could be used to work in that direction. Thank you, Alma, for your offer. We made much more concrete than I could ever have dreamt of.
Thank you. And I will make sure to save the chat of this webinar as well, because I think lots of ideas were thrown in there that I didn't get to read during this webinar. But now, unfortunately, I have to close this meeting and head to our next and last webinar of the day and of the week, actually. So I'd like to thank you all very much again for, first of all, accepting our invitation, joining us, and having this really interactive discussion. So we hope to see you all soon. And if you want to join us in the next webinar, you will find it in the ELNE website.